Chapter 14. Corrido del Gallo Furras. Dicen por este valle lo ha nombrado. El gallo más furras por aquí. Sin temer. De las quijadas de la bestia. Rescato a los lobitos creo que sí. Con un terrazzo a la frente de la bestia. Matochetero en un dos por tres. En fin la bestia no pudo dominarlo. Faltó la fuerza de un gallo superior. El estribillo. Esta leyenda la cantan esos admiradores. Si lo ven por Dios deben de correr. Y deben de esconderse deste gallo. Con su pistola no será muy jugueten. Este mito recuerdan los viejitos. Para que los niños deben de creer. Existe este gallo gavilant. Con su pistola bravura y poder. 23 months ago. In the middle of a makeshift dogfighting ring, Xochitl hung limply between Tootie and another East Los. She didn't know which one. She didn't care. They were all a bunch of animals to her now. Relief had washed over her when Tootie finally brought her to Memo. The beatings that had left her belly bruised and swollen would stop. Memo would make good on his promise to kill her. I need to lie down. Xochitl tried to lower herself down to the floor, but Tootie and his little helper kept her from moving. Why won't they let me sleep? Xochitl found it hard to concentrate as random thoughts clouded her mind like a thick fog. She tried to focus with the one eye that wasn't swollen shut. Memo's feet paced back and forth in front of her. She found the movement strangely comforting, though funny that he still couldn't make a move on her. El Gallo. Shit. Should have called himself El Pollo. Ha. Xochitl smiled at her own joke. Memo's feet stopped in front of her. Oy puta mira. Xochitl's hair pulled at her skull as her head snapped back. Blood dripped down her chin, her grin still plastered on her face. Memo stared at her, turning red with rage. He was holding something in his hand. Is that a remote control? Are we gonna watch TV now? Xochitl didn't know why she thought that was funny, but she chuckled, spitting up more blood in the process. You think this is funny, bitch? Memo barked. She didn't see the back of Memo's hand come at her. The sting on her cheek sent shockwaves of pain through her body, but she didn't yell out or say a word. Instead she kept smiling, daring him to finish the job. Let's get this over with. El Gallo. Want something to laugh about? Memo moved to her side and grabbed her chin, making her stare directly ahead. Laugh at this. She heard him snap his fingers. Fio venga. From across the warehouse a steel door flew open with a bang. Confused her vision blurred. Xochitl barely made out the two figures entering. What's happening? As the figures approached them, Xochitl could see that one of the men was a huge gangbanger with a pockmarked face. He was holding onto a thick chain leash that was attached to a dog collar around the neck of a teenage boy. Oh God. Miguel. The hulking banger stopped outside the ring, several feet away from her. Miguel, wearing only dirty, torn chinos, stood motionless beside his jailer. Her brother's eyes were cast to the ground. Despite Miguel's defined chest and arm muscles, Xochitl was shocked by his gaunt appearance. His once beautiful brown skin was now dull and pale. Xochitl's heart raced at the sight of her little brother chained like one of Memo's dogs. As if she'd just been shot up with adrenaline, her brain immediately cleared of any fogginess. See, baby. I told you if you betrayed me, I'd take everything. I took your bar. Now your little bro. Memo pressed the remote control in his hand. Miguel dropped to his knees, screaming and writhing in pain. I'll kill you. Kill you. Xochitl lunged at Memo, desperately trying to free herself from Tootie's grip. Miguel. Xochitl watched in terror, her little brother's body contorting, shifting. Oh God. No. Miguel's back arched, his arms splayed at his sides. His muscles expanded, shredding his pants. Miguel raised his hands, curling them into tight fists at his temples, and looked as if he were fighting the transformation. All at once his hands extended, elongating into razor-sharp claws while his face lengthened, forming a snout where his nose and mouth had been. His eyes glowed bright amber. Miguel rose from the concrete floor and let loose a blood-curdling howl. The sound echoed in Xochitl's ears, sending a chill down her spine. She had witnessed Lucy Lowell's partner Gabe transform. He had similar features to Miguel, but his awareness, his spirit, had seemed more human. Gabe had seemed like he was trying to save Lucy, not hurt her. He'd responded to her voice, her touch, but this creature's eyes appeared to be filled with pain and rage. There was nothing of her little brother's joy behind them. Every fiber in Xochit's being shouted out for her to look away, but she could only stand there, staring at the monster that had once been Miguel, and scream. Scream for the loss of her brother, her family, her life. That's better, little Guerra. Memo moved away to stand midway between her and Miguel. Xochitl stifled her screams. Don't give him the satisfaction. Vaguely aware of the laughing and hollering from the bangers behind her, all Xochitl heard was the low growl emanating from the large black Werebeast pacing before her, as Memo's lackey held on to its chain for dear life. You know, I always knew the kid had something inside him. Who knew it was? Dog. Memo laughed as he moved closer to Miguel. Turned out to be a good little killer too. I should know. I trained him. I'm gonna kill. Xochitl's voice cracked as she struggled to get the words out. Cabron. I always loved to make you scream. Memo licked the air with his tongue. But first things first. Memo nodded to his man with the leash. Matila. Kill her, was ringing in Xochitl's ears as she watched the gangbanger release the leash, sending Miguel charging across the room toward her. She threw her head back, connecting with Tootie's face and knocking both of them off their feet. Xochitl rolled to her side just as her brother grabbed Tootie's leg, dragged him through the ring fencing and tossed the banger up in the air. Like a rag doll. Holy shit. Tootie landed on the cement floor with a thud. His body twitched and spasmed. Blood pooled around his head. Xochitl scrambled to get to her feet, as were Miguel with one powerful leap, soared over the perimeter of the ring and landed next to her. Where Miguel lunged at Xochitl, she raised her right arm in front of her face to block his attack. His teeth missed her throat but sunk into the flesh of her shoulder. The bone cracked. Blinding pain racked her body. She screamed. Miguel! Stop! Miguel! Miguel straddled her, his chain whipping across her thighs. His jaws snapped at her face and throat, the force of his body weight pinning her legs down. Xochitl struggled to breathe as she tried to push him off her. Miguel! Xochitl's arms were giving way. She didn't think she could hold her brother off much longer. Tears mixed with blood and sweat rolled down her cheeks, stinging the cuts on her face. She knew she was going to die. Her baby brother, the love of her life, was going to kill her. Xochitl took one last look into her brother's blazing amber eyes and whispered, Te amo, mijo. A crisp spring breeze blew through North Hollywood, momentarily creating the illusion of a luscious urban paradise. Glimmering sunshine and clear skies highlighted the bright red splashes of ubiquitous bougainvillea plants, climbing the buildings and made the Vineland warehouse row look almost cheery. Lucy jumped out of the cruiser and hurried to the arriving SWAT truck. On the drive from Gistles and with Rice's cooperation, Birch had assembled a 6-man SWAT team at lightning speed. Why can't we have a full team? Lucy complained, meaning to tease. Birch just shrugged, taking her seriously. Rice gave us what's available, but he sent us dogs just for you. 2 familiar German shepherds greeted Lucy at the truck. The dogs pulled hard on their leashes, clearly agitated and ready to tear into someone. Lucy clicked her tongue and they settled. Why don't you just join K9 SWAT already? Rommel would trade me in for you in a heartbeat. Jake Garlett playfully offered. I don't have the right temperament. That, and I don't want to carry my partner's poop bag. She grinned at the handler and adjusted the Kevlar vest another SWAT officer had handed her. Wonder what Rice is planning for the K9 unit. We're entering from both sides of the building, Birch briefed her. Stay behind the dogs. SWAT is going in first. Lucy nodded and readied her Beretta. Then, once Birch looked preoccupied, scooted in front of the canines. You don't mind, Lucy said. Alpha bitches first is my motto, Jake Garlett answered with a wink. Just don't let Donner bite you in the ass, the other K9 officer quipped. Lamely. Alec, I'd keep a tight hold on Donner if I were you. We don't know how the dogs are gonna react if there are Werebeasts in there. They'll either go nuts and attack or they'll try to hide up your asshole, Lucy replied evenly. The thick reek of blood and sweat hit Lucy even before the SWAT officers broke down the warehouse door. Playtime's over. The crash of the metal door hit by the battering ram bounced off the concrete and gave way to screaming and snarling, the horrible sounds of a dog attack. In progress. Memo's men bellowed as SWAT swept into the building. LAPD. LAPD. Down on your knees. Down on your knees. Lucy heard Birch through the intense barking and yelping of the shepherds behind her. She didn't turn. But since the dogs were sorting out their fight or flight instinct, the scene before Lucy looked grotesque with broken bodies strewn around an expansive fight ring. A large werebeast ripped into a person crumpled on the ground. Off! Lucy shouted and tore ahead of the other officers. The werebeast reeled, as if flung backward. Sit! Stay! Lucy turned her full attention to the person on the ground. Blonde. Hair spilled over the face. The woman's ripped up shoulder and arm spurted blood. Xochitl! Lucy screamed. Please be alive. He's got a device, someone else called out. Lucy spun to see Memo Morales, now down on his knees, clamp his hand around a remote control before dropping it on the ground and lifting his arms again. Shock collar. Lucy got out the words just in time for the werebeast to throw its head back and release a deafening roar. Obvious agony coursed through it, interfering with Lucy's hold, and it turned on her with murderous rage. He's my Miguel. Xochitl raised her head, voice desperate. Don't shoot. Instead of backing up, Lucy stepped into the werebeast and smashed her beretta into his snout. Sit. I said sit. She growled the last sit, and looked directly into his eyes, where Miguel stumbled back onto his haunches and froze. Guillermo Gallo Morales, you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to speak to an attorney. Lucy heard an officer read Memo his rights as she tried to help Xochitl. Lucy glanced over to see a SWAT officer zip-tie Memo while another trained his Heckler and Koch MP5 on the row of Memo's lackeys. Other members of the team worked on the large dog crates lining the wall. Lucy shuddered when she saw people awkwardly crawling out of the confinements. The mix of throaty growls and broken words confirmed that these were the people Memo had taken. Those that are left, anyway. If you cannot afford an attorney, one will be appointed for you. Do you understand these rights as they have been read to you? The officer finished Mirandizing Memo. Memo glanced up at the officer and gave an exaggerated shrug, which drew a guffaw from Theo. His chuckle died abruptly as Officer Gorski shoved him outside. Usted tiene el derecho de guardar el silencio. Cualquier cosa que usted diga puede ser usada contra usted en una corte de ley. Ignacio Ramos broke in. Entiende usted? A handful of officers from the Metropolitan Division had entered the scene, with a group of soldiers in gray camouflage, led by Major Rice. Usted tiene el derecho de hablar con un abogado y tener un abogado presente. Durante nuestras preguntas, Ignacio continued quoting the Miranda warning. Calmly. Entiende usted? Lucy bent down to support Xochitl, who was struggling to get up on her own. Better stay down, Xochitl. Ambulance will be here soon, Lucy said and brushed a strand of blood-smeared hair out of Xochitl's eyes. Getting a good look at Xochitl's bruised face and bleeding shoulder and arm, Lucy feared for the woman. Those sons of bitches beat her before sicking her brother on her. Help me up, Xochitl said firmly, biting down on the pain. Lucy helped Xochitl up, clamping her hands tight to keep pressure on Xochitl's bleeding arm. Xochitl just stared at her little brother, who was slowly changing from werebeast to teenager again. They passed Memo on their way out of the ring. Before Lucy could stop her, Xochitl lurched at the kneeling Memo and kicked him in the crotch. Memo, china tu madre. Xochitl spat blood from her torn mouth in his face and careened backward. Memo yelped and fell over writhing. Lucy thought she heard him retching but was too busy catching Xochitl to gloat. Undeterred, Ignacio continued. Si usted quiere un abogado antestado. Durante nuestras preguntas pero no tiene medios para emplear un abogado asilu. Asignara uno sin costo, antes de iniciar las preguntas. Hands came as if from out of nowhere, and helped steady Xochitl. 2. Paramedics lifted her onto a gurney, leaving Lucy to follow wordlessly. ¿Entiende usted cada uno de los derechos que le he explicado? Lucy could hear Ignacio conclude. I don't understand. I don't understand any of this. She walked from the darkness of the warehouse into the glare of the day. The scene outside had blown up into a circus. Beside the parked SWAT truck, several police cruisers, an armored vehicle, the prisoner transport box truck, and several ambulances had pulled in. The Los Angeles coroner van arrived, followed by a number of news crews. Officers rushed around to set up a police tape perimeter, and Lucy saw Captain Birch hold back the early bird reporters with a terse, presumably empty statement. The younger of the two paramedics paused before the ambulance. Is this one human or were? The older paramedic glanced up at Lucy. Human, Lucy answered quickly. She felt panic rise up in her. Why? 'Cause the catchers are taking the Wers. It's a separate vehicle, the young man said and got to work on Xochitl. We'll take this lady to the hospital. A different truck for the Wers? What about Miguel? Reluctant to leave Xochitl with emergency services, Lucy circled around the ambulance. At a distance, a black truck was being loaded with people in various stages of transformation. Lucy thought she spotted Miguel Magaña being hoisted up by two catchers. Lucy recognized them as two of her fellow ACTF officers, Tolbert and McNeil, but instead of their LAPD uniforms they were now clad in gray camouflage and carried submachine guns. Hey Micah, what's going on? Lucy approached the truck with feigned levity. What's going on is that you got us a hella huge haul. Micah Tolbert, tall, green-eyed man of Caribbean descent, slapped Lucy's back in approval. You are one solid bitch. Hardly back, you deliver the Grand Slam package. Rice is gonna hand out bonuses you keep this up. And McNeil chimed in, tossing her dishwater blonde braid over her shoulder. Damn dirty dogs, I say. She cackled at her own joke. Where are you taking that kid? Lucy stepped up to the open truck door and pointed to Miguel, who was hunched over, sitting with nearly a dozen people, all human-looking and dressed in torn and dirty clothes. They sat zip-tied on hard truck benches facing each other. Two guards with submachine guns manned the front, ready for trouble. Didn't Giselle Sandoval say military was picking people up and forcing them into black trucks? Chateros. Crap, that's us. You guys are all catchers now? Lucy asked Micah and backed away slowly. Yeah, all of us except Heckman and Dawn. Dawn's pulled desk duty. Wouldn't shoot a beast critter, said it looked at her like her beagle, puppy eyes or some shit. Micah snickered. Dumb blonde bitch. Lucy ignored him and turned to Anne. Where are you taking them? The Pound, the clinic, jail. What do you want I should do? Drive them up to Lancaster and set them free in the desert. And scoffed. Why don't I take Miguel Magaña off your hands? I have questions. He has answers. And his sister is my CI. I can take care of the paperwork, Lucy said, trying to sound casual. Are you kidding with that? Rice would kick my ass into next week if I let that little prick go. And McNeil shot back forcefully. You think I'm a moron, don't you? Next you're going to tell me the thing has rights or some sanctimonious malarkey. Get stuffed, Lowell. And seemed to savor her words, as if she had planned them. I thought you were my friend. Leave her be, Anne. You know Rice has a hard-on for her since the thing at the station. Learn to make friends, you silly cow. Micah turned to Lucy, leaving, and to slam the truck doors. But she's right, Luce. You don't seem fully committed to the cause here. Shit or get off the pot, Lowell. He strode away, whispering something too, and that made the woman look back at Lucy and laugh like a hyena. Lucy had never seen this ugly side to Micah or Anne. What's changed so fast? For years these two had been her comrades, her peers, her fellow officers. They'd seen things together. Awful things. She could never trust them as her backup now that she'd witnessed their deep callousness and true cruelty. What the likes of Micah and Anne didn't understand, but what Lucy sensed was that these were creatures, no matter what, were still people. She looked around for Birch, but he was busy with the impromptu press conference. Deep concern drove her toward the reporters flocking around her boss, sticking microphones in his face and shouting out questions. Hey Birch. Stress robbed Lucy of all decorum. She knew she was stepping over a line, but she couldn't help herself. They loaded Miguel Magaña on that black truck. She pointed at the catchers. I want him out, and I want to know where they are taking the rest of those people. An audible swell and jibber-jabber rose from the gaggle of reporters. Birch just turned to Lucy very slowly. Not now. He spoke clearly and loudly but looked at her with apology. They locked eyes for a moment before he turned back to calm the rising speculations, flung at him at excessive speed. Some reporters had taken his pause as an opportunity to lurch toward the black truck, waving to their cameramen to get it all on tape. Soldiers flooded from the sidelines, protecting the perimeter and closing access to the black truck, which was starting to drive off slowly. 3 Humvees followed it to the street, and 2 more escorted it up Vineland. Unsure what to do, Lucy started toward the squad car she'd arrived in. Her Intention was to follow the black truck, to follow Miguel for Xochitl. Don't go there, Lucy. Ignacio Ramos jogged over, surprising Lucy with his close proximity. Don't go back to the black and white, Ignacio murmured. Get in your car and go home. Not your apartment, but home. What are you? Lucy started, her adrenaline instantly spiking again. Rice sent a report about you and the were at the station to his superiors. Typed it for him. Ignacio spoke quickly, beads of sweat forming on his forehead. It's not good, Lucy. He asked them to lock you up. Study you, Rice said. Since the National Guard has been federalized, we're all under his command. Lucy felt like she was about to be shoved into a cage. Her breathing came fast. Only self-preservation counted now. I had Dawn drive your Jeep down here. Hot-wired it myself, Ignacio said with a slight ring of pride. Lucy fought to pull herself together. It all made sense. The catchers, Rice's sudden cooperation, even Birch's apparent friendship. I'm a freak to them. They'd shape her into what they wanted her to be before she'd even have a chance to figure out what she was, a specimen to be studied, a tool to be used in their werewolf apocalypse. Where is it? Lucy looked around for her Jeep. Dawn parked it between the warehouses. Get out of here. I'll cover for you. Ignacio started to walk away. Thank you, Lucy said quietly. She felt rattled and couldn't be sure that he had heard her. Lucy hit the freeway a few minutes into rush hour traffic. It would take an extra 30 minutes or so, but she'd get to the ranch before dinner time. In the rearview mirror, Lucy watched LA city limits disappear behind her. Now what? She flicked on her radio for the long drive ahead. Maybe somebody's broadcasting some sanity. Maybe somebody has a clue what's going on. Maybe somebody can tell me why insane, slavering horror creatures obey me. Tame Werebeast who appealed to Governor Holly Hollis at Sacramento's capital found out to be fraud in fur coat. Click. Vancouver halts. Hollywood Film Productions as our neighbors to the north shut the Canada-US border. Click. What do you say, caller? I say round 'em up and skin 'em. All. Click. Course not. Nobody knows. Nobody knows anything. Time to gather intel and plot a course of action. Time to go home. Chapter 15. The wolf flu strain that has health officials concerned is now confirmed in Hong Kong's new territories. Our government is doing its part to fend off the spread of the virus, but we also have an important role to play by using common sense and being vigilant. Of the 153 people so far stricken, all have died. That is 100% fatality rate. The wolf flu is an emerging human virus, and much is still to be learned. Has undergone genetic changes that suggest it could evolve, and a pandemic would then loom. But alarm is not needed. Our scientists are world virus virtuosos, and our government is as prepared as possible. Cooperation with the mainland is robust. South China Sea Daily. Lucy frowned at the messed up rig. You sure you want that beaten up piece of crap, Mac? She shoved the trailer door closed, hoping it would stay shut this time. Lucy and Xochitl had abandoned the horse trailer with its broken axle on Swimford Street under the Vincent Thomas Bridge, before dragging Travis to the dilapidated Catalina Express building where Captain Azov's crew had crated the boy and shoved him below deck. An inauspicious start to a journey that was more of a gamble than a guarantee. Exhausted, Lucy felt sad for Travis. In one night, the teen turned Werebeast had lost his home, his family, and his girlfriend. Even if he lived through his first few days on the island, his life would be a non-stop contest for survival with other refugee wers. Lucy's thigh throbbed where Travis had clawed her earlier. The gas station fiasco didn't help either. I'm gonna have to get my leg looked at after all, Xochitl, she said to her partner, who was still fiddling with the lock. Close pendejo. Xochitl spat at the unruly lock, too cranky with exhaustion to keep her voice down. She acknowledged Lucy with a sympathetic turned-up lip and scrunched-up face. Lucy took in the wrecked trailer with its bulged walls and broken axle. Travis had not gone gently. Give it a rest, Zoc. Lucy let out a long, slow breath meant to focus her. She looked at Mac. The old security guard could have been 60 or 600 years old for all she could tell. He stood up straight, wiry muscles showing through his security uniform, but his skin gave away his age. The tone was more gray than black, matching the iron gray of his very short hair. He seemed frail to Lucy, barely hanging on somehow. That thing's gonna be a pain to haul out of here, She wanted to give Mac an out. My brother's got a flatbed. He'll come get the trailer in the mornin', Mac said, dismissing further discussion. He seemed agitated. Meantime, why don't you pull your old car around? Let's take a ride. I got something you ought to see on Terminal Island just over the bridge. Xochitl bristled. Hey Mac, you might be like 1,000 years old and you're doing us a solid by getting rid of that Palooza trailer, but don't go dissin' my ride. She lovingly ran her hand over the fire-orange fender. This is a 1966 Oldsmobile Tornado. Pure power, turbo-hydromatic, and quadrajet. His name is El Gallo. Respect. She tossed her long blonde hair and gave Mac an exaggerated withering stare. Lucy tried to suppress her smirk. No offense, miss, Mac said quickly, looking unsure. Please, I just need you to come over to the container yard on the other side. Why? Lucy asked. She was cold and on edge from an already long and grueling day. Mac visibly made up his mind. We had some trouble, he began cautiously. Something has been loose in and around berth 19 for days. It broke out of a shipment from Hong Kong. When customs inspected the container, it came tearing out. Call Homeland Security or ICE Homes. Xochitl jangled her gold rooster key chain impatiently. Lucy's the Werewolf Whisperer, not La Migra. Please, you have to listen. Mac grabbed Lucy's arm. It's a were, not a human. Lucy pushed his hand from her arm firmly. I'm listening. No one has been able to get close to it, but I saw it earlier tonight at our security shack. He halted, making sure he had their full attention. It's not a werebeast. It's a hound. A boy. Mac was starting to sweat. He took sandwiches. I caught a glimpse of him through the blinds. Looks so human, but not, you know? The eyes just aren't human. The man seemed lost. Briefly. I told my boss, thinking he could get ice to lay off the port for a while, Max said. But he called the catchers instead. Lucy shot a somber look at Xochitl. They'll gas him, Zoc. She felt deep bitterness and resentment toward the officially sanctioned Werebeasts police. Over the last 2 years, the catcher unit had turned from a first line of defense against the chaos brought on by the Kyon Virus into a group of unchecked sadists lacking accountability. Lucy hated dealing with them. Pinch Shoteros, Xochitl said. Show us, old man. She slid into El Gallo's driver's seat and surprised Lucy by fastening her seat belt. Lucy scooted to the middle of the bench, leaving space for Mac to join her. He climbed in slowly, as if his legs weren't cooperating. Once seated, he leaned as far away from Lucy as possible. Lucy wondered if he was giving her space to be polite, or because sitting next to the Werewolf Whisperer was just too weird. Of course, since her last shower, she'd chased down several wers taught a hound class, sat in mind-bogglingly horrible traffic for hours and hours, and carted about a tranquilized werebeast weighing about a ton with a creaky hand truck. Maybe I just stink. Lucy sniffed in Xochitl's direction. She didn't seem to smell so bad. What? Xochitl asked. Flustered, Lucy sharply turned back to Mac, who was staring at her intently. You probably don't remember me, Mac started. Lucy shook her head. Apologetic. Mac held up his hand. Don't you worry, Miss Lucy. You meet a lot of people, I'm sure. He stopped again, apparently trying to gather his thoughts. You helped me with my son little over a year ago. Lucy strained to remember the man but couldn't come up with anything. It was at Point Fermin Park, Mac continued. Lucy remembered the Point Fermin classes sponsored by Hound Chow. They had been fun. I had to work, but my wife took our son Kenny to one of your workshops. Only came by at the very end to pick him up. Mac looked out into the darkness. They had pulled onto the Vincent Thomas suspension bridge that connected San Pedro and Terminal Island. Lucy was momentarily mesmerized by the beauty of the blue LED lights illuminating the suspension cables and the sparkling skyline ahead. San Pedro's Golden Gate. That's what they call it. Mac's voice had a warm resonance. Tell me about your son, Lucy said. Is he a hound or a feral? She hoped for the former. My Kenny's a hound. Mac sounded almost proud, Lucy noted. Kenny always had troubles. Drugs, fighting. It didn't get any better when he got older. He was 40 and a drifter when he turned. That was 2 years ago. It was hard at first, but your workshop saved us. Really did. You probably don't hear this a lot, but Kenny becoming a hound saved his life. After you taught my wife how to train him, he's been so good. He's been living with us and he's the best kid. Makes me sad we won't be around to take care of him forever. Lucy didn't know what to say. I feel for those critters. Mac's voice shook with emotion. I don't know why any of this happened. The Wereflu, the attacks. It was also bad for a while. But they're not all violent. Some can be saved. Right, Miss Lucy? He looked at her, searching her face for answers she didn't have. I want to help. It's okay, Mac, Lucy said automatically, in her calming tone of voice. Seemed to work because Mac stopped escalating. He looked determined. I want to help, but I can't lose my job. My wife and Kinney are counting on me. He didn't look at her. Can you get the stray hound quietly without anyone knowing? We'll do our best. Lucy knew she couldn't promise anything, but she didn't know what else to tell him. Take the exit off the bridge at Ferry Street, Mac directed Xochitl. Then go straight until you get to the gray guard shack. My shift's over. Aaron should be there already. He's pretty freaked out about the stupid kid almost shot at it when it first broke free. I don't know why they let him bring his own gun. Fabulous, Xochitl said and started to pull into the large empty parking lot. Mac made an sound and pointed to a secluded overflow lot hidden under the bridge across the street from the guard shack. Faster to get out. You just take Ferry Street right back onto the bridge from over there, he explained. In case there's trouble. Xochitl let out an exasperated sigh, made the turn with a squeal of the tires, pulled the car into the shadows under the bridge and cut the engine. I'll take you to the place where I saw the hound, Mac said, scrambling out of El Gallo. Lucy stepped out of the car, stretched and scanned the area with some misgivings. Dank, dark and out of sight. Perfect. Xochitl popped the trunk and grabbed her shotgun. Come to Mama. Lucy's eyes passed over the AK-47 and their neuter 21, before resting on the trank guns. We're out of trank darts and we can't take the elephant gun because we don't know the hound's weight. Lucy pondered out loud and grabbed her Beretta. No guns, please. No guns. Max started to shake. I won't take another step if you take guns. Are you kidding? Xochitl looked completely surprised. What's wrong with you? Mac looked at Lucy, fear in his eyes. If someone accidentally gets hurt, gets shot, gets killed even, it's on me. He looked toward the water. I don't want any trouble. It's just a hound. You're the Werewolf Whisperer. Why do you need a gun to take in a hound? It's not the hound I worry about. Lucy tried to sound reasonable. What if you're wrong? I'm not. The man was adamant. But what if you are, and it's really a werebeast? I read you can control werebeasts. His challenge gave Lucy pause. Mac, it's not always clear-cut. What if there's more than one? Lucy sounded like a coward to herself. The man's face had started to change during their argument. He was losing respect for her, she could tell. Maybe he's right. Maybe we've grown too paranoid. Fine, no guns. Lucy decided impulsively. What? Xochitl gripped her shotgun tighter to her chest. Are you out of your mind? You're scaring the man. Lucy looked toward the guard. Mac, give me your nightstick. Mac handed over his side-handle baton with no reservations, a relieved look on his face. Jodame. He's scared? I'm scared. This is bullshit, Xochitl muttered but returned her shotgun to the trunk, instead selecting her karambit knife. Harness. Lucy backed away from the trunk filled with firearms, strapped on her utility belt and slid the nightstick in place. I've missed my baton, she said, feeling at ease with the familiar weapon at her fingertips. Gabe used to be the Tomfa King Zoki. He studied some Okinawan martial art. The name of the school kept changing. I can't remember, but we spent so many breaks practicing with the batons. Lucy gave Xochitl a sidelong glance. You would have liked Gabe before he turned, I mean. Yeah, I guess I didn't meet him at his best. Xochitl shrugged. All I remember is him tearing a hole in a gangbanger on my cantina floor. Mac looked uncomfortable again. Lucy felt sorry for the old man. He was living in a violent world, trying to keep a small corner of his life peaceful. On the one hand, he was brave and honorable for looking out for a stray hound. On the other hand, involving the Werewolf Whisperer, without getting approval from his boss, could cost him his livelihood, or get him killed. Lucy knew that Things as a rule had unintended consequences in her line of work. She made up her mind to send Mac home at the first opportunity. As they crossed the street to the guard shack, Lucy spotted a black van pulling into the big parking lot. Crap! Catchers are here already. Lucy walked faster, hoping to head them off. Mac, you said your shift is over. Why don't you keep walking to your car? We'll get it done. I'll stay, Miss Lucy. The old man's voice shook, but he sounded sincere. We got it from here, Mac. Lucy wanted to keep him out of danger. Go home. Mac wavered. Lucy guessed good sense and sense of duty were playing tug-of-war inside of him. You'll just get in the way. Xochitl sounded annoyed, but Lucy knew she was just trying to help Mac make the smart choice. The Hound's been holed up in a little grove of trees straight down by the tracks, Mac said quietly. He didn't point but nodded his head down the street. Good luck. Mac didn't wait for any final words from Lucy but walked toward his car on the far side of the parking lot. Lucy thought his gait was lighter. Perhaps he felt like a weight had been lifted off his shoulders and firmly mounted on ours. Ahead, Lucy saw 4 catchers jump out of their van and head for the door of the guard shack where a young blonde security guard, presumably Aaron, waited for them. Let's do it, she said to Xochitl, who had already picked up her stride. Well, I'll be damned to a hell of rotting fish, a tall catcher yelled out, and pointed at Lucy and Xochitl. It's the Werewolf Whisperer and her law. Gara. He laughed in a dirty way and spat on the ground. Like the other 3 catchers, he wore the new black catcher jumpsuit, black army boots and had a tactical AK-47 slung over his shoulder. Assault rifles, Xochitl commented under her breath. Don't you feel wonderful about your little tomfa classes with Gabe now, Luce? Fuck me. Lucy said nothing else. Lucy Lowell, another catcher, a powerfully built black man with a platinum mohawk, walked up to meet Lucy and Xochitl at the curb. Xochitl, Lucy spoke through her teeth. This is Micah Tolbert. He used to be one of my fellow ACTF officers when there was a animal cruelty task force, bitch. Micah's tone was mocking and superior. Hey, and he called to a female catcher with a shaved head. ACTF reunion time. And McNeil left the other 2 catchers by the truck and strode over. What do you want, Lowell? And wasted no time. The catchers are here now. Girly, why don't you hit the road before you break a nail? Why don't you shut your mouth before I shut it for you? Xochitl said in a bored tone. Puta. And reached for her gun, but Micah held out his hand. Don't be a stupid cow. And you can't just shoot them down like a dog in the street. He laughed bitterly. You're upsetting my team, Lowell, Micah continued, looking at Lucy. Why? Don't you and your friend do the smart thing for once? Beat it. No big, Micah. We're just looking for a little girl's lost hound, Lucy lied. We got an anonymous tip that one was spotted somewhere in the container terminal. Give us a break. Let us look around. As much as she wanted to put her fist through Micah's smug face, she knew tangling with the catchers would just lead to endless delays and mountains of red tape. A little girl's lost hound? Micah guffawed. You're so freaking pathetic. Used to think you were the shit ordering those dog faces around. But you're just a fetch and carry now. He preened. You have any idea the kind of bonuses we make? Moolah, baby moolah. And the bennies? We're rock stars on the force now. Just look at our guns. Lucy knew becoming catchers had brought out the worst in both Micah and Anne. But Micah's rabid edge was unexpected. How are the others? Lucy hoped to rekindle a sense of camaraderie in the man just long enough for him to let her and Xochitl go about their business. Others? And answered in an ugly tone. There are no others. Goddamn worse. Killed them all. It's just us, the desk jockeys and the new recruits like Herrero and Kawanko over there. And that's what's up, bitches. Micah was clearly running out of patience. There's a Werebeast out there with my name on it. The guard kid Aaron told us. He saw a Werebeast here earlier. Stole his lunch or some guano. My AK's gonna tear that weird shit a new asshole. If I don't get the fucker first, and cut in aggressively. What if this Aaron's wrong and it's a hound? Lucy asked simply. Whatever tickles your twat. Werebeast. Hound. Dead is dead. Micah waved the other 2 catchers over. My old friend Lucy and her GF want to go looking for a lost hound, Micah announced while smiling indulgently. What if we make a little wager? Phew. Catch the Werebeast first, you give it to us. And if we catch it first, we arrest you for trespassing and impeding an investigation. What if it's a hound? Xochitl asked with uncharacteristic calm. It's not a hound, little Galena, the catcher and had called Herrero, answered her with a leer. The rent-a-pig swore to me it was a werebeast. Do I look like the kind of hombre someone would lie to? Vida la verga, Xochitl replied with a sweet smile on her face, though Lucy saw the smile did not reach her eyes. Enough flirting. Micah signaled the catchers to move out toward the water. Scream if you need help, loosey-goosey. He dismissed her with a wave. I'd like to hear you scream, and added before walking away. Choteros are all bats hit crazy, Xochitl said when the catchers were out of earshot. Let's just avoid running into them again. Lucy glanced at the guard shack as they walked in the opposite direction. Wonder why that errand guard lied about the werebeast. Lucy hesitated. Unless it was Mac who lied about it being a hound, Xochitl said, a bitter sound to her voice. It was well past 1 in the morning, and Terminal Island was quiet except the occasional vehicle rolling by them as they made their way down Ferry Street to check out what Mac thought was the hound's hiding spot. Coming back another time wasn't an option. Lucy squashed the impulse to leave. She felt herself starting to fade. Her bones ached and tension clamped down on her neck muscles, causing what felt like the beginnings of a migraine. The light from the street lamps felt like someone was stabbing her brain with toothpicks, but thankfully it provided enough illumination to do away with the need for their flashlights. The sea air had grown much colder since they had wrestled Travis onto the dock. The wind picked up, and Lucy felt a light drizzle hit her face. It could be worse. It could be raining, Xochitl quoted their favorite Frankenstein movie. On the other side of a low fence, what Mac had called a grove turned out to be nothing but a scraggly piece of dry land with a few clumps of anorexic-looking trees and scattered patches of weedy brush. The streetlight didn't reach as far as the desolate lot, and Lucy had to strain to see past the scrawny trees to the train tracks. She caught a movement out of the corner of her eye. At the same moment, Xochitl hissed, "There!" A dark figure shot out from behind some low bushes and, yawping a wild howl, ran toward and then past Lucy and Xochitl. Lucy stumbled back one off-balance step, reached out her hands to grab the figure as it flew by, and missing it, sprang forward in pursuit. Xochitl at her side, Lucy gained on the hound as they barreled down the middle of the road, dodging a black town car at the last moment. The driver hit his horn, the honk sounding like an alarm through the quiet night. The hound ducked in between two large buildings, still howling and yipping as if he enjoyed the chase. It's a game to him. Lucy got the words out between sharp breaths. Sprinting from a standstill forced her lungs to work overtime and spiked her heart rate. Pursuing him at a dead run, Lucy and Xochitl cut through a narrow parking lot and emerged on Terminal Way. Across the street, the hound, Lucy was fairly certain he was a hound, scaled the tall chain-link fence surrounding the massive container yard, swung himself over the top and disappeared behind rows of blue and red steel containers. Son of a bitch! Xochitl yelled and came to a stop. With no thought in her head, except for catching the hound, Lucy bounded across Terminal Way and threw herself at the fence, gripped the chain link with her fingers and put all her effort toward climbing. Adrenaline carried her over the top. Gravity did the rest. Xochitl appeared on the inside of the yard, next to where Lucy had crashed down. Picking herself off the ground, Lucy felt jarred and winded, but detected no injury. She wasn't entirely sure how she hadn't broken anything. There's a gap in the fence by the lamppost, ninja, Xochitl said and pointed to a rolled-back section of chain link, half hidden by the angle of the street lamp. Sometimes it's better to look at your surroundings first. Ow! Lucy gingerly touched her leg, which had started to bleed again. She winced, causing Xochitl to give her a concerned look. Where did he go? Lucy focused on the walls of the intermodal containers, lined up straight ahead with long alleys running between them. Round the right, down the blue row. Xochitl stared into the darkness. The light from the street lamps did not reach into the container yard. You flush him out. I'll try to head him off around the other side. Lucy took a long thin whistle from the inside pocket of her bomber jacket. This carries over 400 yards. She blew into the dog whistle. I dunno, sounds broken to me. Xochitl smirked and took off in the direction the hound had fled. Lucy saw a steady stream of light coming from the cell phone in Xochitl's hand as she disappeared behind the enormous steel boxes. Lucy felt she could see just fine and started to run toward the section of red containers stacked high to her left. She quickly learned she'd have to pace herself. Her body was stiffening from the abuse of the day and the impact of her fall, the sum total sending shocks through her with every step. More of a fast walk than a run, Lucy entered the container alley with only the light of the moon to guide her. "Here, boy," she called and made clicking sounds with her tongue. "Where are you?" A loud bang reverberated from the next alley, followed by Xochitl's trumpet, like nearly incomprehensible rapid-fire rant. "Tu estúpido poroi fidget mi hands around door little neck I am gonna strangular to." A jubilant howl followed, and the hound came racing around a far corner, moving so fast he nearly flattened Lucy. She grabbed for his white t-shirt and swept his ankle with her good leg. His momentum tripped them both and Lucy went down painfully for the second time that night. The hound squirmed and twisted his body to break free. Luckily Lucy had landed on top of him. She forced her elbow into his solar plexus. He took a large involuntary breath, forgetting to struggle for a split second. She seized the opportunity and stuck her face right into his face so they were nose to nose. "Down!" She growled so hard and so low in her throat she sounded like something out of a nightmare to herself. The hound went limp instantly, his golden wolf eyes gleaming in the darkness. "You got him." Xochitl weaved around the corner at a slightly impaired rate. Her nose was bleeding, and she held her hand to her forehead. "What did he do?" Lucy asked, trying to decide whether or not to leash the hound. Xochitl hit the hound and Lucy with the beam of her cell phone flashlight, causing him to whimper and Lucy to rear back. Pinch Pero ducked when I went to grab him, and I went face first into the corner of the damn container. Xochitl sounded angry at herself. "He's fast. Get up." Lucy gestured to the hound. He stood up and took a slow step back. "Stay," she coaxed and held up her hand. The hound stood with his back against a container, bathed in the light of Xochitl's phone. The were was an Asian teenage boy about Lucy's height. He looked thin and pale. His black hair fell straight to his shoulders, but unlike all the hounds and ferals Lucy had run across, no hair covered his face, neck, arms, or hands. His white t-shirt was filthy and ripped where Lucy had grabbed him. His jeans looked worn but not faded. He was barefoot, but again to Lucy's surprise, he did not have the characteristic clawed hound/feral feet, but his glowing golden eyes told her that he was not human. "What are you?" Lucy asked out loud, not expecting an answer. The hound tilted his head to the side, as if trying to get a better look at them. Then he stood tall and let out a stream of words that Lucy did not understand. He gesticulated wildly, peppered throughout the unfamiliar language was the familiar-sounding Kyon. The boy said it over and over, while nodding fiercely. "Shit, what is that? Chinese. What the hell?" "He can talk up a storm," Xochitl said, flabbergasted. "What in the—" Lucy's mind raced. "They told us the outbreak was confined to North America. Max said this hound came from Hong Kong." The hound perked up when he heard her say Hong Kong. He nodded fiercely. "Xianggang. Xianggang. Must be his name." Lucy pointed to him. "You Xianggan. Xianggan." She turned to Xochitl. "Am I saying that right?" Xochitl shook her head. The hound shook his head too. He pointed to himself in a panic and repeated, "Kyon, Kyon, 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 Kyon." Lucy pointed to the boy. "Kyon." The boy nodded furiously and went on, "Kyon, Kyon, Kyon, Kyon." Lucy looked to Xochitl. "Yeah, we get it, little buddy. You've got KV." The boy stopped and tilted his head, perplexed. "Enough of this," Xochitl said. "Let's just call him Kai." Lucy shrugged her shoulders. "Why not?" Kai inched to the side, ready to run off again. Lucy stepped in his path. "Only obedient when watched," Lucy said. "I got your number, Kai. Hey Zoc, give me something to feed him. Establishes a bond." She held out her hand but kept her eyes on Kai. Xochitl dug the bag of pepitas from the gas station out of her pocket and tossed it to Lucy. Lucy made a face. "Pepitas? You're nuts." Xochitl barked a short laugh at Lucy's bad joke. "Pumpkin seeds, buddy. Pepitas. Yummy." Using her high-pitched coo, she lured him closer. Kai stuck out his nose and sniffed at the bag. Lucy dumped a small portion onto her hand and offered that to him. Kai snuffled at the pepitas, then snatched the bag from Lucy's grip. He emptied its contents into his mouth and chewed ecstatically. See, he likes pepitas, Xochitl pointed out primly. They eat sticks and mud. Not a big stretch. Lucy shrugged her shoulders. Before Xochitl could reply, the quick burst of a siren approaching startled them. The catcher van, Xochitl said. It's coming from the water. Let's beat it, you two. Lucy stepped very close to Kai, getting right in his space, their eyes locked. Kai, with me, she commanded firmly, hoping the hound would understand. Side. She pointed to the right and slightly behind her. Kai trotted to her side and followed without a sound when Lucy and Xochitl headed for the hole in the fence and toward the street. We can try to avoid the catchers by going over the train tracks, which will take longer. Or we can just head straight for the car, Lucy said, looking for input. Car. Xochitl sounded ready to pass out. She wiped her nose on her sleeve. The bleeding had stopped, but Lucy could tell by the lights on the street that Xochitl would have a massive black eye in the morning. Shoteros talk big, but when it comes right down to it, they're still cops. Xochitl reasoned. The Werewolf Whisperer rubs them the wrong way, sure. But they don't totally hate you. They won't fuck with us, especially since I'll be recording our next powwow and posting it simultaneously. She shook her smartphone back and forth. Huh. Lucy didn't follow. On my phone. When they pull up, I'll have my phone out recording everything. And I'll tell them that I'll be posting it instantly. You can do that, Sock? Really? Easy as 1, 2, 3. Don't worry your little turn of the century head about it, Luce. Picking up the pace, they crossed to Ferry Street. The road stretched before them, leading to the far lot where El Gallo was hidden under the illuminated bridge. The drizzle had turned into a misty rain, and the light reflecting on the wet asphalt shimmered as if the road had been sprinkled with diamonds. Kai didn't even glance at the puny grove of trees when they walked by. Lucy wondered how long he'd been holed up there. She wondered where he'd come from. Exactly. She wondered about his unusual verbal skill. He didn't speak English, but he was obviously fluent in Mandarin. This Chinese hound was a mystery. One she was too bone-weary to solve right now. Xochitl was uncommonly quiet, making Lucy believe she too was worn out and bewildered. When they passed the large corner employee lot, Mac's young colleague Aaron bumbled down the slick stairs of the guard shack and ran toward them. They walked faster, trying not to be too obvious about avoiding him. Aaron stopped at the vacant kiosk at the entrance of the parking lot, keeping cautious distance. You caught him. You caught him. His pink cheeks puffed in and out as if the short run had been a major strain on his system. He put his hands on his thighs, bending at the waist for a moment. Lucy thought he might keel over. Remind me to never use this security company, Xochitl said under her breath. Kai took a step toward Aaron, and the young man sprang upright so fast the navy baseball cap with security stitched on the front fell off his head. He left it where it lay, not taking his eyes off Kai. Stay, Kai. Lucy reached out and put her hand in front of Kai's chest. Aren't you going to chain him up? Aaron shouted unnecessarily from where he stood. I can call the catchers back if you need help. We're fine. Lucy held both of her hands up, palms facing out. Unlike Mac, Aaron was not squeamish about guns. Lucy saw his hand twitch toward the thigh holster carrying his Glock. We'll put him in the cage in our car over there. No worries. Lucy tried to sound casual, gauging his overzealousness. You're in luck, Aaron called out as if they were all deaf, not reading the situation in front of him but apparently playing out a bizarre scenario in his head. There's the catchers now. And with that, the catcher van bounced up on the sidewalk behind them. Fluorescent high beams suddenly flooded the driveway, causing Aaron to shield his eyes with his hand. Lucy stepped to the side and turned in time to see Micah lean way out of the driver's window. Well, I'll be goddamned. You found your hound, he slurred, sounding high, but then cut the engine, shutting off the painful light. You win, Lucy. Lowell. You win. You lucky dog. He leaned on the horn, making Lucy jump and throw her hands to her ears. Xochitl pulled out her cell phone. Deal's a deal, Micah. Lucy shouted. Deal's a deal. She heard Anne's disappointed whine from inside the van. Come on, Mikey. Light 'em up anyway. He seemed to consider. Nah, and jammy bitches got their hound. Aight. He leaned so far out of the window trying to look at Kai Lucy thought he might fall out of the car. Deal's a deal. My motherfucking word's my bond. Micah cackled like a hyena. Yo, rent a pig. You owe us drinks. Was no goddamn Werebeast like you said. Pussy. Deal's a deal. Aaron picked his cap up from the ground, pushed it down onto his wheat blonde buzz cut and scurried past Lucy toward the open driver's side window. Side door, moron, Micah said, swatting at Aaron. Good snitches are hard to find, he added as if trying to explain. Lucy's eyes cut to Kai, who followed Aaron shuffle around the front of the van with interest. Hold, Kai, she said quietly but firmly. He blew out a sigh when Aaron climbed in the van and shut the door. So have a nice night, yo, Micah shouted and started the engine. Say hi to the Vijay boys. He burned rubber past them, fishtailed on the slick road and almost careened the van into a nearby telephone pole. Loud laughter rang out as the catcher screamed around the corner and flew down the long road, parallel to the bridge at a ridiculous speed. Don't know if they'll live through that ride, Lucy said and put her hand on Kai's shoulder. Good, Kai. That was very good. Good listening. The boy seemed to understand the praise because he smiled and straightened up proudly. He's got a great temperament, Lucy said. Very even. So who the hell are the Vijay boys? Xochitl asked, sounding beleaguered and disinterested in discussing Kai's emerging talents. Chapter 16. 2. Troika at Third are you? Melto Troika at Third are you? From omega@arough.net. Melto omega@aru.com. Subject. Loose ends. T. The remaining 5 have been taken care of, but Dr. K fled the country. Oh. 2. Omega@arough.net. Melto omega@aru.com. From Troika at Third are you? Melto Troika at Third are you? Subject. Loose ends. Oh. Not acceptable. How could you let Dr. K get away? This will not sit well with the others. T. 2. Troika at Third are you? Melto Troika at Third are you? From omega@arough.net. Melto omega@aru.com. Subject. Loose ends. T. Then you hunt Dr. K. We have bigger problems. He hired a bioengineer, Dr. Ajay Doan. Damn human called 911. He could expose us. Almost had him, but he got away. Out of the country by now. So you might want to take care of that one. 2. Oh. 23 months ago. Biscuit sleeps so much. Little Lucy kisses her dog's graying muzzle. He's getting old, my sweet, Mama says and sits down on the porch beside them. These days Biscuits prefers sleeping to running. It's the way of dogs. I liked it better when he wanted to play all the time. Little Lucy takes Biscuit's paw in her small hands and traces her fingers along the hard pads. The golden retriever lazily chews the air with an open mouth but doesn't wake. You know, one day soon Biscuits will have to leave us and go where all good dogs go in the end. Mama gently runs her hand down the dog's golden blonde shoulder. What about the bad dogs? Little Lucy worries out loud. There are no bad dogs, my little one. Mama smiles her happy smile. Mama. Little Lucy isn't sure she should ask, but the words tumble out before she can stop them. Will you have to leave me one day? Mama takes Lucy's face in her hands. Don't worry about that, Lucy. Mama will always be with you. She kisses Lucy's forehead. A harsh piercing cry ricocheted through Lucy's throbbing skull. Loud voices assaulted her ears as she pulled away from the sweetness of the dream, feeling sluggish and stupefied. What's wrong with me? I didn't even have a beer last night. Lucy finally woke to the strange sound of her mother and Hannah fighting. The windows still shut. Her room was stifling and hot. The low-level panic Ignacio's warning had sparked seep through her haze and left her jittery. Go home. Not your apartment but home. She vaguely recalled leaving her clothes in a pile on the floor at night before falling into bed. All 5 dogs had taken refuge from the fight and had jumped into Lucy's bed. Though Lucy had no memory of their invasion, the giant Chasselas pressed his full weight down on her, while little Poppy wiggled under the pillows. Like Lucy, the dogs had never heard Ellie and Hannah raise their voices to one another before, let alone engage in a screaming fight. You said it wouldn't happen. The rest of Ellie's shouting was drowned out by a loud crash. Is Mama throwing things? Lucy felt groggy and too weak to brush the blanket of cowering dogs off the bed. Exhausted, she closed her eyes and just listened. All 5 dogs whined, softly in different pitches. I never said that. That's what you wanted to hear. Hannah's voice sounded hoarse. Lucy flashed on a long-forgotten memory. She'd heard Hannah holler like that once before, decades ago. Lucy had been a small child, but the other voice hadn't been Ellie's. It had been deep and had yelled back in a language little Lucy didn't understand. She'd hidden under her covers, frightened, and willed herself to go back to sleep so she'd have to hear no more. Fighting the weird fatigue, Lucy only sunk deeper into her pillow. The Labs, Briscoe and Maggie, who had her flanked, snuggled closer. The voices rose abruptly and overlapped with the television as if in an echo chamber. Unprecedented violence in the streets of all major California cities. Lucy stays out of this. A little late, Ellie. Police and National Guard mobilized. She's my daughter. Citizens asked to stay close to home. I don't want her involved. Shelter-in-place orders in effect in San Francisco and Los Angeles. You really have no clue what is going on. 5 USC grad students found slaughtered. Please, Hannah. Mama and Hannah were fighting about her. Lucy's thoughts came sluggishly as she squeezed out from under the dog pack. Chasselas put out his big furry paw to hold her back. Shoo, Chas. Let me leave, boy. The mamas are fighting about me. About me. Going back to LA and helping. Lucy stumbled but steadied herself on the bedpost. She bent down to pick up her discarded t-shirt and cargo shorts from the floor. Another crash came from the front of the house. Sounds like someone slammed the front door. Curiosity drove her forward, and Lucy padded out of her room, leaving the dog pack hiding under her sheets. Chickens. She snuck down the hall toward the living room, pulling her hair back with a ponytail holder she'd snagged from her dresser. She shook off the last of her haze and stepped into the living room. The yelling had stopped, but as she peeked through the plantation shutters, she could see Hannah and Ellie facing each other outside. Behind them down the driveway, Jerry and Rana hustled a young couple and on Akita from their white pickup truck to the kennels. Lucy headed toward the front door to help Jerry and Rana with the potential boarders and ease the horrible impression Ellie and Hannah must have made on them. Remembering she was still braless, she retreated back through the kitchen to the small laundry room instead. Lucy quickly noted the breakfast dishes piled up on the counter. Ellie failing to load the dishwasher was a first, though the kitchen table was wiped clean. And Lucy's keys, wallet, and gun were neatly piled on a placemat. The kitchen TV was still on, but breaking news had given way to hyper-commercial jingles. The laundry room smelled like clean linen and lavender, and as expected, Ellie had washed and folded the clothes from Lucy's duffel bag. Lucy had barely clasped the bra hooks in place when a hideous roar resounded from outside. The resident canines responded with fearful clamoring. Howls and whines sharply burst from the kennels. The warning yap of an unfamiliar dog. The Akita Lucy guessed rang like machine gun fire. A woman screamed for help. Jerry? Lucy shot to the front door, grabbing her Beretta from the kitchen table on the way. She threw open the heavy door and leaped onto the porch, gun ready. Off! Lucy shouted. The sun blinded her, and she almost tripped down the porch steps. Her hand tightened around the Beretta. A tall, thin lupin beast stood on the grass below, its back to Lucy, facing the white pickup truck. Torn jeans and a burnout R&R t-shirt hung off the creature's body in strips. Defined lean muscles gave its body the chiseled appearance of ideal human proportions, but Lucy noticed right away that the long legs were animal-like, not human. Lucy fought against rising panic. She caught a glimpse of Rana trying to keep cover behind the pickup while hauling the frantic Akita back by its leash. The Werebeast ripped the already shredded clothes from its body, exposing patches of sandy blonde fur. It howled in frustration and faced the white pickup truck where Hannah stood tall, shielding the group of visitors. Hannah's eyes shot to Lucy. As if the look had sparked something, the creature dropped its long arms, claws retracting into long furred fingers, and turned deliberately. Lucy felt her heart drop into her stomach. The creature's face was delicate, beautiful even. Its coat was mostly sandy, blonde, but denser platinum fur ticked from the inner edge of the eyes to the top of the head and from the outer edge of the eyes to the ears. A long silken muzzle tapered down to dark pink nose leather. Chin, lips, and nostrils were covered in the same sandy fur. Fear gripped Lucy by the throat. Down! Lucy's command came out in a hoarse whisper. The beast cocked its head and took a step toward Lucy. She stepped back and raised her beretta. The creature's eyes glowed a startling emerald green, the color of her mother's eyes. Mama! Lucy choked on the word. She felt like her head was about to split open. Without warning, the creature sharply turned away from Lucy and bore down on Hannah at a dead run. Do it! Hannah's voice had a cold, hard edge. Lucy's finger squeezed the trigger. A single shot rang out. The creature dropped. It was over. Hannah and Lucy both ran toward the crumpled form. Lucy dropped to the ground and turned the creature over. The transformation reversed blindingly fast. Where a beast had been, Ellie's delicate body lay in Lucy's arms. Her emerald eyes open and glassy, Ellie was gone. Unbearable pain gripped Lucy's mind and didn't let go. She screamed and screamed until her throat could produce no more sound. Then silent sobs rocked her as she clutched her mother close. Mama's warm blood oozed onto Lucy's bare skin. Time had no meaning. When rough hands yanked her to her feet, she didn't know if it had been a second or a day since that single horrible gunshot. She recognized the sheriff, heard the words, felt the hard plastic of the backseat of the police cruiser, but nothing was real. As if floating in a sea of darkness, she noticed nothing, cared about nothing, said nothing. All she wanted was to be one with the nothing. Nothing. Chapter 17. Are you or someone close to you a victim of a war attack? Are you grieving for a loved one? Are you in need of support? You are not alone. WOGS, War Attacks Anonymous for Grievers and Survivors, provides a safe, anonymous environment for emotional, educational and social support for individuals learning to cope with a war attack. Meetings are the first Monday of every month, 7 to 8:30 p.m. St. Francis of Assisi Catholic Church, Fellowship Hall. Visit our website for more information, including directions to our meeting place. www.wogs.org. http://www.wogs.org. El Gallo waited for them under the Vincent Thomas Bridge. Perocino is not getting into my ride until he towels off, Xochitl said, shaking out her own rain-soaked hair. Both wet and freezing, Lucy already fantasized about snuggling into the flame. Mobile's warm lambskin bench covers. She'd turn on some nice, soothing music, drive to a nice, close motel, get some nice food, some nice sleep and decide what to do with Kai in the morning. A gray pickup truck sped toward them, flashing its brights. The excruciating screech of electric guitars and a pounding, insistent bass blasted through the night. Alarms went off in Lucy's head. Run! She yelled out, but Xochitl and Kai were already in motion. They raced toward El Gallo and his trunk full of guns. Squealing tires and burning rubber, the gray truck skidded to a halt under the bridge, cutting them off and blocking El Gallo. The truck was an older model, primer-colored with Vijay Boys spray-painted on the side. You had to ask who the Vijay Boys are, Lucy said, tense and alert. The loud death metal continued to roar from enormous speakers pointing out of the pickup's sliding rear window. The singer's deep, gravelly voice was mostly incomprehensible, but Lucy thought she heard words like judgment, blood, salvation, and tears. When the truck stopped, the brights stayed on and the stereo continued to bray. The driver planned on keeping the engine running, it seemed. What do you want? Lucy shouted using her best authoritative cop voice. Two men jumped from the bed of the truck. They were medium height, of compact build and carried bats. Both men wore black ski masks, dark pants and muscle shirts that exposed multiple tattoos on their overdeveloped arms and shoulders. Lucy noticed one wore cowboy boots, the other high-lace black and white boxing shoes. Werewolf whore! The man in the cowboy boots bellowed over the shattering death metal. His voice sounded strained and without resonance, as if damaged from prolonged screaming. We take werewolf whore and friend and pet, the man in the boxing shoes added, in a vaguely Middle Eastern accent. He spat on the ground and smashed his fist into his open hand, obviously attempting to come across as scary and tough. It worked. You're making a mistake. Lucy tried to stall, pulling Mac's baton from her belt and putting herself in front of Kai. A severe look cast over her face. Xochitl closed in, her curved karambit knives held tight to her body, her knees bent, ready to launch. This is gonna be fun. A third figure broke from the passenger side of the pickup. He was much taller and skinnier than the other two. He wore a black leather duster and a black motorcycle helmet sprouting a spiky red mohawk. Instead of a bat, he carried a long lead pipe. "Get the fuck outta here," Xochitl yelled. "You can't tell us what to do." Motorcycle Mohawk Man sounded catty and spiteful. The turn of phrase made Lucy think he was young, maybe college age. "Am I supposed to laugh myself to death?" Xochitl shouted rashly and took an aggressive step toward the tall man in the ridiculous outfit. The man stepped back into an exaggerated fighting stance and raised the lead pipe high. "Unclean. Black Devil Hound dies." A decidedly young voice cracked, sounding more like the boxer than the other two. A fourth figure climbed from the driver's side of the cab and onto the roof of the truck. "Are you the leader?" Lucy tried to stall again. Obviously the youngest. Judging by his slight build and skater hoodie, his face was covered with a long black and white scarf which he held to the side to talk. Lucy could make out a little mousy mustache and a pathetic Van Dyke. "We are Vijay boys," he shouted and stretched out his arms as if to embrace the night. A machete gleamed in his right hand. He pointed it up, then slashed down through the air and shouted, "Kill unclean dogs." "She's right, this gonna be fun. Take the blonde. I'll take the redhead." Cowboy Boots came at Lucy, his bat poised. She stepped aside and pivoted her body to face his back. The momentum of swinging the bat carried him past her as she'd anticipated, but he adjusted to her move. He jammed the bat back sharply, cracking her in the ribs. Pain bent Lucy's body in half, but she spun the baton up by the side handle and connected with her assailant's face before he could bring the bat down on her. She kicked the side of his knee with the hard sole of her boot. There was a crunch and his leg crumpled inward. Wasting no time, she jumped behind him and, catching his throat with the length of her baton, grabbed the stick from the other end and strangled the air out of him. For a moment, she had the upper hand and could glance at the others. An unbelievably fast Kai dropped the boxer with a resounding flying spin kick to the temple. The man crumpled to the ground, motionless. Kai let out a triumphant howl. Xochitl fought in such close range with Motorcycle Mohawk Man that he was no longer able to use the lead pipe. But he must have caught her at least once, because one of her arms hung limply. Her other hand led a karambit knife in wild figure eights, slashing and ripping at the man's exposed neck. He hauled the lead pipe back, exposing his neck further, and plunged the weapon squarely into Xochitl's chest. She fell backward on the ground. He stumbled forward, blood streaming onto the black leather of his coat. Lucy loosened the grip on her baton, feeling her assailant starting to slack. But she had misjudged, because he straightened with enormous power, ran backward and nearly smashed Lucy between himself and the open tailgate of the Vijay Boys pickup truck. She let go of him and the baton in time to avoid impact and dropped to the ground. No longer carrying his bat, the man didn't hesitate to kick her in the side. The sharp point of his boot buried itself deep in her oblique muscle, the acute pain blurring her vision. Barely able to breathe, she pawed at the ground with her open hand, hoping to grab her baton but finding only sand. The man was on top of her in an instant. He grunted and ferociously grabbed at her crotch with both of his hands, as if trying to rip through the material of her sweatpants. White-hot anger rushed through Lucy, and she pushed her body up against him with a sharp thrust. She brought her fist against the side of his head, causing it to swivel to his opposite shoulder. Lucy threw the sand she was still holding in the closed fist of her free hand into his face. He pulled back, involuntarily clawing at his ski mask as he tried to clean the grip from his eyes. Her leg freed now, Lucy brought her knee up into his groin with all the force she could muster. He screamed like an animal, rolled to the side, grabbed himself and heaved. Lucy jumped to her feet and grabbed the bat lying on the ground. In the blink of an eye, she saw Kai dancing around Motorcycle Mohawk Man, delivering unanswerable blows to any exposed areas. Kai pulled tendrils of the ridiculous fake mohawk attached to the man's helmet, yanking him off balance. Xochitl was now locked in a blur of flashing blades with Machete Hoodie Boy. She was fast with her one good hand. She twisted her wrist and made the blade dance up her attacker's arm in tight circular motions. His sleeve was already shredded and covered with splotches of blood. Before the tide could turn again, Lucy picked up Cowboy Boots' bat and delivered a solid swing down onto his kneecaps. The impact was devastating, and he screamed unintelligible profanities at her. She bent down, rolled him over, and swiftly restrained him with the zip ties from her utility belt. The Vijay boys' vile death metal still roared, now spewing an ear-splitting but clear chorus. Annihilate the Kyon plague. Over and over and over. Following a perverse impulse, Lucy stood tall, shook her head from side to side and let out a fierce wail. Felt good, luxuriant even, to let her voice play through the chaos. Kai answered with a howl of his own, ripped motorcycle Mohawk man's helmet off, and brought it against the back of his head with a loud crunch. For a second, Kai's opponent wavered. His lips curled back from his large buck teeth and his giant light eyes grew wide with shock. He fell forward. Xochitl had Machete Hoodie Boy down on the ground now, holding his blade to his throat. Stop playing with the little douchebag, Lucy called to her. Xochitl looked up as if she didn't comprehend the words, still lost in battle. Madness. You done good, chica, Lucy said to Xochitl, then whistled for Kai, who was riffling through his down prey's pockets. Kai came running with the energy and zeal of 10 puppies. Help Xochitl, Lucy told Kai and scooted Xochitl out of the way. Lucy knelt down next to Machete Hoodie Boy. His hoodie was shredded, blood flowing from multiple deep cuts on his arms, which just flopped on the ground next to him. She shredded you up good, Lucy said with a nasty little laugh. Kai helped Xochitl to her feet. Hog-tie the SOB's Zoc. There's still rope in El Gallo and more zip ties if you want, Lucy said, looking up and nodding toward the Vijay boys' pickup. And turn that horrible racket off. Bloody awful. Putting her attention on the gang's noxious little leader, Lucy ripped the black and white scarf off his face. In the shadows and covered in grime and blood, he still struck her as having traditionally attractive features. His shaggy dark hair curled past his shoulders. His skin was creamy pale, contrasting bushy eyebrows and large dark eyes. He was young, she had assessed correctly. His paltry facial hair was so sparse she guessed the boy could be no older than 18. His full lips quivered with mumbled words she couldn't understand. Why? She asked, knowing there would be no answer. Removing the scarf exposed his neck, and Lucy spotted odd shapes under the material of his zippered hoodie. She put one knee on his chest and leaned in. Slowly she zipped the pull tab away from his neck and down. On his blood-stained white t-shirt lay a row of 24 or so long curved shapes, tightly strung together on a silver chain. Some looked dark and opaque, some white. Most looked sharp. Lucy gingerly picked the necklace up and examined. The teen took the opportunity to wiggle, but she ground her knee down into his chest. He fought to catch his breath but otherwise held still. Claws, she whispered. And teeth. She dropped the necklace as if it had burned her and looked into the young man's dark eyes, wanting to hurt him. These are too small to be from Werebeasts. You took trophies from Hounds. Was a statement and he didn't deny it. Instead he smiled weakly. Proof. I kill unclean dogs. For my father. I kill them all. Lucy's anger flamed hot, and she could hear her own blood coursing in her ears. Before she could think, she had crammed his scarf deep down into his throat. If I ever see you again, I will kill you. If I ever hear of the Vijay boys again, I will kill your family. The words came out as a guttural growl. Hey, Luce. Xochitl had walked up next to them without Lucy noticing. She sounded calm and even in contrast to Lucy. It's enough. Let's just get out of here. She put a hand on Lucy's shoulder. He took trophies, Zoc. Lucy stood up, running both hands over her moist eyes and through her hair. Without a word, Xochitl ripped the horrible necklace off the young man. Get Kai into El Gallo. I'm taking care of this, Xochitl said, yanked the scarf out of the teen's mouth roughly and slapped his face twice, letting her rings cut into his cheekbones. Lucy stood still, a part of her wanting to kill him more than anything. Another part fighting the waves of despair that were crashing through her. Claws and teeth will slice them. Bring them to their knees. The bizarre words whispered through the recesses of Lucy's mind. Her hands trembled and she clasped them together. Kai came alongside her and lightly bumped her shoulder with his. He pointed to the other 3 men, all neatly hogtied beside their truck. The loud music was finally off and Lucy could hear the rain coming down hard. No worry, long Jejia. He grinned at her with a smile so brilliant it traveled all the way to his sparkling golden wolf eyes. Yeah, no worries, little buddy, Lucy said, took Kai's arm and started walking to El Gallo. You're garbage, she could hear Xochitl mutter, as she hogtied the last Vijay boy. Hide boy. Run away and hide. Our hound has your scent and my friend was not kidding. If you assholes do anything else, hurt a hair on a hound's head, I mean anything, we will find you and end you. You are done. Moments later, El Gallo roared to life in the quiet of the night. Xochitl drove past the aftermath of the fight at a crawl, taking quick shots with her cell phone camera. For the scrapbook? Lucy asked and reached for the radio. Just insurance. I took pictures of each of their ugly mugs and their license plate. In case this comes back to us in any way, we know who to ground and pound. She tucked the phone into her pocket and engaged the windshield wipers. They pulled onto the Vincent Thomas Bridge, heading toward the freeway. The pretty blue LED lights caught the cloudburst, making the raindrops look like silver rills coming down the windshield. Lucy tuned the AM dial to the classic country station. The unmistakable voice of Johnny Cash filled the car. Kai, who had curled up in the back, stuck his head over the seat. He looked at Lucy with raised eyebrows. Now that's music, buddy. That's real music. Lucy ruffled his hair. Go back to sleep. We have a long drive. About that. Xochitl gave Lucy a sidelong glance. Where are we going? Empyrean, Lucy said firmly. We're going home.